Welcome to Dan's Talks podcast. My guest today is Scott Rubenstein, who runs the East Hampton Clubhouse on Daniels Hole Road, so named, I think, years ago for having sent the road out to a hole, I suppose, but this is not that. Anyway, the clubhouse is down a long driveway. And it is a complex at this point, which has grown into a whole group of different kinds of events and organized activities. You can eat there, you can go bowling, you can play video games, there's all kinds of stuff going on there. Tennis courts, which started the whole thing years ago. What is the play and where is it? And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's a reading. It's a play reading with Eddie Cassar. I don't know if you know, Edward Cassar has done a lot of plays out here at Bay Street, Guildhall. And I'm more familiar with Edward, who's my closest friend, having asked to do the reading, than I am with the actual play that they're reading. But, you know, we do a lot of different things at the clubhouse. We have the plays, we have a lot of events there. We've had Amy Schumer there. We've had John Bon Jovi. We've had comedians, talk shows. So we're open to all different ideas, and we love to do things with local people.
When is this reading taking place?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I don't think they finalized the date yet. We're waiting to get approval for the license for the play, and then we'll have that date, and we will definitely let everyone know.
Let me know, tell me some of the other performers who have been there and on the stage.
Well, I think our most famous, of course, is John Bon Jovi. We did a big event for him for charity a year ago in May, and we raised $54,000 between Project Most and Meals on Wheels. And John's a very charitable man. He's just a wonderful guy. Contacted me in April of 2020 through my son Matthew and asked if we would allow him to have a food bank on the property. And we served over 100,000 meals. John puts up all the money, does everything with him and his wife Dorothea, and they take care of the whole thing.
What are some of the other activities? Talk to me briefly about, I mentioned them myself, but elaborate a little bit on them. And then we'll go back to how it all came about.
Well, we have indoor tennis, we have outdoor tennis, we have platform tennis, we have pickleball. That's all at the tennis facility. We have a swimming pool. At the clubhouse, we have 44 arcade games with 10 bowling lanes and a beautiful 18-hole miniature golf course. We have about an acre of lawn where we have live entertainment. In the summer, we have a nice stage inside where we have live entertainment. We have a couple hundred dining seats, 20 plus TVs for watching all the sporting events. We play sound live. So there's really something for everybody. Some time of the day, there's something for everybody.
What time do you open and what time do you close?
So right now for the winter, we open just Thursday through Sunday. We open up at 3 o'clock. Thursday and Friday, and Saturday and Sunday we're open at 11.
And how late do you go?
Till 11 o'clock.
At night?
Yes.
And let's go back to the beginning. I remember your mom starting I guess it was the tennis club there, and then they built an inflatable over what, or were you involved with that? Tell me the story of how it came up.
My wife and I started the project. We always had my mother's vote of confidence, and she was always there to speak to, not involved in this particular project with us. But Holly and I started this project in 1985. We went to the town and said, we have an idea. We would like to do a project. At that time, it was called Hamptons. And they said, go buy land by the airport. And we bought this 24-acre tract. and we developed it and brought in some partners in 1995. And we opened in 95 with 6 indoor courts.
I remember that Paul Anacone, who was a ranked tennis player, was coach there or ran it or were part of it.
So Paul helped us out with, Paul's a good friend. He and my wife and his wife Tracy all graduated high school together. Paul helped us out with our junior tennis academy when we first opened. And he, was director of it. He then went on to run 2 huge charity events where Tim Henman and John McEnroe and Jim Courier and Lindsay Davenport and Todd Martin all played. I think we raised in the 2 years almost $500,000 for charities. Wow. Great events that Paul helped put on.
How many outdoor courts do you have and how many indoor, for starters?
So right now we have 6 indoor courts and 20 outdoor courts. We have 2 platform tennis courts. We used to have 8 indoor courts. And what we did when the East Hampton bowling alley closed down, I went to my partners and I said, guys, I think maybe we should diversify. And maybe we should consider building a bowling alley where those 2 indoor tennis courts are. I think the community can use the indoor bowling. And I think it would be nice to have something different on the property. And they all agreed. Back in 2016, we started the planning process and we opened up in 2018.
How many lanes is that there?
We have 10 lanes. The old bowling alley had 16, we have 10. 10
And,
beautiful state-of-the-art lanes.
And when did the clubhouse open? Tell us a little bit about
Well,
that.
that was with the clubhouse. So it all opened up at one time. It opened July 12th, 2018. And everything opened up at once. The mini golf, the bowling, the arcade, the dining. We weren't sure how it would work, but that was a Thursday, and that Sunday was the finals of World Cup. And they were lined up down the sidewalk. We had about 500 people there to watch World Cup. And we kind of looked at each other and said, you know what, maybe this was a pretty good idea. The community's embracing it. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. You're born and raised in the Hamptons. Tell us a little bit about growing up here.
So my parents moved out here in 1969. My dad drove in his checker cab. He drove a checker cab in the city. He used to commute and continued to work there. Back then, you could get back and forth a little easier than you can these days. And I would say it was the greatest thing my parents did. We were so lucky. It was still a small town of 7,600 people from Montauk to Wainscott, Amagansett, East Hampton Springs, parts of Sag Harbor. Stores were closed on Sunday at the Sunday Blue Laws. Your doctor showed up at your house with a little black bag in his hand and he came to see you. Wonderful town. I mean, Dan, it was the greatest thing that ever happened. I must tell you.
I was here too.
It was great. But the story I tell everyone is the first year we were here, about a month into being here, my mother had a gallbladder attack. A little different back then. You were in the hospital for a few days. And suddenly, people started showing up at the house with vacuum cleaners, with trays of food, because they heard there was a new family in town with young children. And the lady of the house was ill in the hospital, and the neighbors felt they should come help out. And that's the town I grew up in, where people, it was a great town. It still is a great town, but it was special, very special.
You mentioned a population of 7,600. Was that for the township, or how do you measure that?
But that one, at that time, from Montauk, including Amagansett Springs, East Hampton Village, and Wainscott, and that small part of Sag Harbor, that was the year-round population. And if you remember,
what is it now?
Labor Day ended. Everyone was gone.
That's right. What is the population now? Do you know roughly?
I told it's just around 32,000 year-round, and it goes up well over 100,000 in the summer.
Yeah. And the stores were closed on Sunday when we first got here.
They had the Sunday Blue Law. I remember riding my bike into town to go to the park, which is
Yeah.
what you did when you were in the city. You went to Riverside Drive Park, and there wasn't a car on the road. There wasn't a kid in the park. And
Did your mom go into real estate?
my mother was a professor of philosophy. She had a PhD in philosophy and used to teach and did teaching out here. She then got into politics. She worked for Perry Duryea for years. And then she went into real estate. She opened up Loner Rubenstein Inc. and always stayed in politics. She always seemed to be the go-to person out here for politics.
Perry Duryea, for those who don't remember him, owned the lobster place out in Montauk, and he was the head of the assembly in New York
Yeah,
State.
Speaker of the House. He was the Speaker of the Assembly.
Yeah, and a very powerful, he ran for governor one year too.
Right.
I remember that. He lost, but he ran.
He lost to Hugh Carey.
Yep.
But people don't realize Montauk is about 68% reserve area. And
Yeah.
between Perry Duryea and Deborah Foster, who was instrumental in acquiring property, they protected a lot of property out here. You know, when you say bring home the bacon, Perry Duryea took care of the East End and didn't forget where his home was.
And what did you go to? You went to East Hampton High School, and after that, where did you continue?
Went to East Hampton High School. I loved East Hampton High School. Went on to, didn't do very well in college. Did not follow my mother's footsteps, who has a PhD. I did a little bit at Queens College, then Suffolk Community, then Albany State, then Suffolk Community, then NYU. Then, you know what? I'm better off just working very hard. This is just not working for me. And I ended up dropping out of college. My wife's family is local. My wife's the Grimes. So her family's from Montauk. And they've been here since the late 1800s.
What's the maiden name?
Grimes.
Sure, and we know all we know about with them. Yeah, they just Vinnie Grimes had a gas station out in Montauk, and
Yep, and Dan had one in Bridgehampton.
Yep, and Keith is running a very successful, huge business about doing docks and all kinds of large projects.
Yep. Keith, his son Peter.
Yeah,
is very successful, went into business. No, they're a hardworking family.
Yes, they are, and so are you at your place. I've been there, and it's a wonderful place, particularly for kids and people who like play. The kids who like the video games, and there's something there for everybody. It's a sports bar.
Dan, the nicest part about the business, when you're in there and you have live music, or there's a Giants game or the Super Bowl, and you look around, nobody cares who anybody is. Nobody cares how famous you are or aren't. You are someone who just wants to, in the middle of the winter, watch a good ball game. And if you're a Giant fan and your team scores, you high five the guy next to you. I tell everybody all the baloney is left out in the parking lot. Nobody cares what car you drove in. You're just a bunch of guys and gals enjoying the day on a winter day. And that probably gives my wife and I the most pleasure out of the place, is just seeing everybody get together in one building. A
lot of buildings are, other than the indoor courts. How many square feet is the main facility?
So the clubhouse is about 16,000 square feet of indoor space. And then we have an acre of lawn. And then we have an 18-hole miniature golf course with night lights that's on over half an acre.
And do you have any plans that you can tell me about for the future, or just what's going to happen?
I think like everybody else, we're talking about pickleball.
Yeah.
That's the conversation out there. There's a new game called Padel.
What's that?
And that's started over in Europe, very popular. Just coming to the States, already very popular here.
What is it? How do you play it?
It's an indoor, it's not indoors. It's like tennis, table tennis, racquetball. There are fiberglass walls. It's smaller than a tennis court, and it's very popular. but pickleball is very popular.
Yeah.
And
There's a lot of stuff going on about the noise it makes.
that is the only problem. You're 100% right. They've got to come up. That wiffle ball is very noisy. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure talking to you about the old days and also about the clubhouse and all that you've done. And I want to thank you for being a guest on my podcast. And I want to wish you well, and I'll see you. I'll see you in a couple of weeks as we go
Dan,
back to some of the games that we play out there.
thank you. I want to thank you, and I'll tell you a funny story. One of my partners was looking for that subway that was built out in Suffolk County, East Hampton, and I kept saying, this is Dan's paper. Dan's paper is the greatest stories, but there is no subway built out here. It's not happening. I think it was about 14, maybe 18 years ago. You did that article about a subway.
It was about 11 years ago.
11 years ago.
Existed for about 10 years until last year. I think I told every conceivable story that could have possibly happened on the East End.
The greatest stories. It was the greatest stories. The greatest stories.
And so thanks very much. I think we're about out of time. And I'll be coming down there to watch some of the football as the time goes by. And thanks very much, and have a nice rest of your day.
Dan, you too. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure and an honor to speak to you. After all these years, let's sit down like this.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.